Trusty's Hill, located near Gatehouse of Fleet in the Stewartry district of Galloway, is the southernmost location of a Pictish carved stone in Scotland. This is what drew the Dumfriesshire and Galloway Natural History and Antiquarian Society to this site. What are Pictish symbols doing in Galloway? Why were they carved here so far from the Pictish heartlands of northern Scotland? In 2012, an archaeological survey brought a sharp clarity to Trusty's Hill, the vitrified stone rampart that encircles its summit, the series of outlying enclosures, and the complex entranceway flanked on one side by Pictish carvings and on the other side by a large rock-cut basin. This layout, a fortified nucleus flanked by non-concentric enclosures on the lower-lying sides of a rocky knoll, is recognisable as a nucleated fort, type of hill fort unique to early medieval Scotland. But scratch the surface, as local volunteers led by GUARD Archaeologists did, and there's a lot more to this site. The point of the 2012 excavations was to reveal the archaeological context of the Pictish symbols here. And though only 1% of the site was excavated, a surprisingly large range of artefacts was recovered that reveal key characteristics of this complex fortified settlement. Like this sherd of earware from southwest France that dates to the late 6th century AD. This was not valuable in itself, it's what it once contained. Perhaps olive oil or spices, as to why it was worth exporting so far before finally being reused to make some stew. It didn't fall from the sky, mind. It had to be brought over the sea to Trusty's Hill, and demonstrates that the household here was part of an international trade network linking specific regions of Western Britain and Ireland with southwest France, and where Gaulish merchants were making a beeline for the Galloway coast. A collection of metalworking debris was also recovered, fragments of small crucibles and moulds. X-ray fluorescence analysis discovered that objects of gold, silver and leaded bronze were crafted at Trusty's Hill around AD 600. Not just reworked or mended items, but entirely new objects fashioned from raw materials, such as the iron ore smelted here, and this lead ingot recovered from the dig at Trusty's Hill. In a non-monetary economy, the production and distribution of fine jewellery and other high-status objects was the currency of kingship, the means of attracting and rewarding followers. Numerous slingshot stones were also recovered from just behind the vitrified rampart around the summit of Trusty's Hill, proof that this household was worth defending with lethal force. At some time during the late 6th and early 7th centuries AD. What other evidence for the status of this early medieval household? The butchered bones of cattle, sheep and pigs, the grains of oats and barley, the iron scraper, the spindle whorl, evidence for the preparation of hides and wool for clothes and gear, and the feasting of beef, mutton and pork, oatcakes, bannocks and beer held upon the summit of Trusty's Hill. Altogether, this has all the hallmarks of a royal stronghold of the period. It is with all this archaeological evidence that the significance of the Pictish symbols at Trusty's Hill are revealed, because now with this wide range of material culture that demonstrate the wealth and connections of this early medieval household, the true context of the Pictish carvings here comes into focus. The style of the reversed Z-rod and double disc, and the sword plunging into the belly of the dragon. Analysis of the details of these carvings indicates that it was not Picts who carved these, but local Britons, confident enough to use Pictish art. In the same way other non-Pictish peoples of Scotland, the Britons of Dunedin, modern-day Edinburgh Castle Rock, and the Scots of Dunad in modern-day Argyll and Bute. At Dunad, another nucleated fort, where excavations recovered a similar range of material culture, is a carved footprint where the early kings of the Scots placed their foot during inauguration ceremonies at the entranceway to the summit. Next to this, carved into the same outcrop of rock, is a Pictish symbol of a boar, and a rock-cut bowl. So too at the entranceway to the summit of Trusty's Hill are found Pictish carvings facing a large rock-cut basin. Synonymous context suggests synonymous reasons behind the Pictish-style symbols at these non-Pictish sites, that is, royal inauguration ceremonies for the wealthy and well-connected households that once resided there. But if these were royal sites, what of their kingdoms? Like Dunnad in Argyll and Bute, Trusty's Hill lies at the apex of a cluster of hierarchical, secular and ecclesiastical settlements. A group of forts, including the Moat of Mark, where a rich assemblage of jewellery production and international trade is evident, and monastic settlements including Whithorn, the cradle of Christianity in Scotland, where the first evidence for literacy and direct international trade is evident. These all lay in Galloway during the 6th century AD. Except it wasn't called Galloway back then. That's a later Norse Gaelic name. It was probably called Hreged, the kingdom of a once dominant king of the Old North that's been long lost to history. But it was all for naught. This once royal stronghold was attacked, captured and burnt to the ground, probably by the Angles of Bernicia, and the role the Britons of Galloway played in establishing writing, reading, Christianity, direct trade with Europe, political innovation, and the very beginnings of statehood in Scotland, these were all but lost and forgotten until they were dug up some 1400 years later.